everyone. This is Judge Shannon Gallagher speaking. I'm speaking directly to those of you who are on Zoom. I want to thank you for joining us today for this hearing. This is not going to be an easy sentencing hearing to sit through. I'm asking all participants on Zoom to remain on mute unless you are specifically directed by this court or the prosecutor or defense counsel to unmute. Please respect that there are a lot of you on Zoom. There are also a lot of you in the courtroom. So we all need to abide by the rules of decorum. Please don't make me have to take action to keep control in this space. Someone is still unmuting. To those of you just joining, please mute your Zoom. You're going to have to stay here because people are joining. Thank you. All right. Nancy, are you ready? Yes. Okay, we can go on the record. We are here today in cases 673-953, 667738, 666 991, 657-556, 656-393, and 654-129, State of Ohio versus Raymond Francis. Good morning, Mr. Francis.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Francis is in court with his attorneys, Michael Marine. On behalf of the State of Ohio is Prosecutor Lindsay Patton. We are here for sentencing today. Prior to the beginning of this hearing, I have received a sentencing memorandum filed by the State of Ohio, a sentencing memorandum filed on behalf of Mr. Francis, a mitigation of penalty report prepared by the court psychiatric clinic. I've also reviewed the letters that have been attached to both respective sentencing memoranda, and I have also reviewed the 3 separate body cam videos that were submitted to this court under seal. Again, all of this was done prior to starting this morning's hearing. On behalf of your client, Mr. Marine, is there any reason not to move forward?
No reason, Judge.
All right. On behalf of the State of Ohio, Ms. Patton, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. On August 26, 2022, the lives of the Endress and Diaz families were forever changed.
You're going to have to slow down.
When the defendant, who was joyriding while being a fugitive from justice and having a suspended license, killed their 28-year-old daughter. The defendant had left the community-based correctional facility and stole a car in Brook Park on June 29, 2022. On August 26, 2022, troopers did a random license plate check and attempted to initiate a traffic stop upon seeing that the license plate was reported as stolen. The defendant initially stopped his car and allowed his passenger to get out, telling the passenger, "I don't want to go to jail," before fleeing. Troopers did not pursue the defendant and instead relied on air support that was in the area. The air support showed the defendant almost struck several other people and was traveling at a rate of 70 to 80 miles per hour when the victim was struck in this case. Your Honor, prior to getting into the legal arguments to support our request of a maximum consecutive sentence in this case, I would ask that the court hear from the family.
Please.
First, who's going to speak is the victim's sister.
Your Honor, my name is Annelisa Endress. I am 22 years old.
Hold on, I'm going to spell your name for me. Angelina, can you spell that?
Angelina. Endress, Endres.
Endres. Ms. Endres, please, when you're ready.
I am 22 years old. I am Annelisa's youngest sibling and her only sister. First off, I can't even believe that I am up here saying this. I am hurt, I am in disbelief, and I am angry. Not only is Annelisa my sister, but she is my best friend, my twin, my boo, and like she always says, I'm her mini-me. My sister is my best friend. We would always go to each other for any advice and to tell each other all of our secrets. The person I could always count on. We both always had each other's backs. She is my gluten-free partner. She is my role model, a woman I have always looked up to. Annelisa is the best big sister ever, the type of sister and best friend people wish they had. She was truly one of a kind. Annelisa had so many goals and dreams, some of which she was able to achieve, such as her LLC for her food business, NJ's Eats, and NJ's Estates as well. She absolutely loved cooking, trying out new food spots, traveling, reading, and going out with friends. Annelisa was going to own her own food truck and eventually open up her own restaurant. Annelisa had dreams of getting married and even having her own family one day. Suddenly, all of my sister's dreams and goals were taken away, all because of this selfish person. I remember that day like if it were today, Friday, August 26, 2022. I was at work when I received the call from my mother. My heart immediately dropped. My whole body started shaking, and as I rushed out of work, I began to cry. I'm not even sure how I made it to the hospital myself, but somehow I made it for my sister. As our family and friends were waiting to get more answers, they informed us all of my sister's injuries. My sister had a broken pelvis, broken ribs, and internal decapitation. My sister's spine had detached from her brain, and there was nothing they could do to save her. I remember my sister's spine had detached from her brain, and there was nothing they could do to save her. I remember my father asking to speak to another doctor because he couldn't process what was being told. My brother was screaming and walking.
Slow down.
My brother was screaming and walking out the room. I remember my mother trying to stand and trying to walk away, but her whole body was shaking. My grandmother had to be checked in a separate room, and then me, I just remember I kept crying and saying, "Not my sister, not my sister." When they asked to see my sister, we then asked to see my sister. As my mother, brother, and I walked down to the room, I remember it feeling like I was in a horrible movie scene. The room doors were wide open. As we looked, the whole room was filled with so many doctors, and as they attempted to resuscitate my sister, I remember just staring at her, trying to process what was happening. We started to hold her hand, cry, and to speak to her. My life instantly felt unreal. A piece of my heart went with her. I stayed at the hospital for hours, not wanting to leave my sister's side, holding her, admiring her beauty, and telling her how much she meant to me and how much I love her. This individual took my sister's life, and I'll never be able to grow old with my sister. I'll never be able to see my sister walk down the aisle, nor become a great mother. I will never get to see her open her food truck or restaurant. I won't ever be able to go out to eat, travel, or sing our favorite songs together. I will not ever be able to see my sister, to hug, to kiss, and hear her voice. I now must live with beautiful memories I will forever cherish. Now I can only visit my sister at the cemetery. Now I can only see her and hear her in my dreams. My life now feels unreal. I struggle every day with anxiety and still not being able to fully process the fact that my sister's life was taken away, all by this selfish individual. This person has committed multiple crimes and took my sister's life. Your Honor, I truly believe with all my heart that he should be given the maximum sentence possible and much, much more, because no amount of time will ever be enough to bring my sister back. He made a horrible choice on that day and should be accountable for. All we want is justice for my beautiful sister, Annelise.
Thank you.
Your Honor, next is the victim's father.
Can you tell me your name, sir?
Kyle Endress. I'm Annelisa's father, and my daughter was she's a all-around good person. She didn't like conflict. Anybody knows her. She didn't like conflict. She didn't like drama. She was a very neutral, cool with everybody type person. Very joyful, full of life, cheery, and extremely easy to get along with. Like, she always met a lot of everybody that met her liked her. Me and her were very close, and the type of relationship we had. If I was having the worst day or just a bad day at work or a bad day in general, I'd just call her, and by the end of the 2-minute conversation, I'd feel great. I'd feel fine. Everything. She was my person. I always, gravitated towards her if I had any issues with something, or it was weird. She was my daughter, but she would give me a lot of advice as well as, you know, that she would always seek advice from me and stuff. We just shared a lot with each other. We were extremely close. I don't want to take up too much time, but
You can take all the time you need, but I am going to ask you to speak a little bit louder. I'm
Okay.
having trouble hearing you, sir.
This is real pain. This is not theatrics. It's real hurt. It's real emotions. I don't even have the I don't have the words, you know, for what I'm feeling. I live out of state. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And when her mom called me and said she had been hit, I just left right away with the clothes on my back. And I'm on the phone with the doctors on speaker. I got no further than Chicago, like 2 hours into my drive, and they told me there's nothing more they can do, that she wasn't going to make it. And I, you know, I had to continue on for like 4.5 hours. Just, I can't tell you how that was. It was horrible. Obviously, I arrived. I was just in disbelief. But yeah, she was everything to me. She still is. Like I said, she's my favorite person in the world. I realize this is a mental health court. I understand this person has some mental health issues, but trust me when I say we have mental health issues also. And I don't want the mental health to be an excuse for what he made a conscious decision. This crime wasn't committed due to his mental illness. I'm aware of the chances he got in the past and took advantage of, took it for granted, you know, the leniency, and he just, I mean, now here's where we're at. This is where we're at now. I ended up, you know, killing my daughter because he was trying to evade the consequences of what he did. I implore you, the whole family, we implore you to impose a maximum sentence on all charges. We want justice for Annelisa, because I know that she would do that for you if this was your daughter and she was up there on that bench. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Clearly, the devastating loss of this young woman's life cannot be overstated. As we see from the tremendous family support in the courtroom and the nearly 3 dozen people who were on Zoom, she was deeply, deeply loved and was an important young woman in the lives of many people in this community. During the nearly 10 years that I've been a prosecutor, I can count on my hands how many times I've asked for either a maximum or a consecutive sentence. It isn't something that is done lightly, and yet I firmly believe that the facts and circumstances of this case warrant it. This is a defendant who pleaded guilty and was convicted to 5 separate cases over a 2-year time period. The state of Ohio acknowledges that he does have mental health issues. However, for 2 years, he had the assistance of mental health court, resources and support of his family, and was even given an opportunity to go to the community-based correctional facility where he absconded and shortly after stole the car that was used in this case to kill the victim. This is someone who has had 5 separate chances of rehabilitation, and he has shown that he is unwilling and unable to follow the laws of the state of Ohio. But even more dangerous than that, he has shown that he is willing to put the lives of every other person he encounters at risk in order to escape justice. There is no question that on the day that this tragedy occurred, this defendant was thinking clearly. He saw the lights and sirens, he pulled over, and allowed the passenger to get out of the car. He knew the risk that he was posing, and his decision and why he made the choice to flee is clear as can be, because he told the passenger, "I don't want to go back to jail." We know from the helicopter footage that he was swerving in and out of traffic, that he nearly hit 3 or 4 other individuals and was going 70, 80 miles per hour at the time of impact. There is no question that he knew the dangerous nature of his conduct and that he decided the risks of every other person he encountered that day paled in comparison to him having to face the consequences of his actions. Your Honor, when we look at whether or not consecutive sentences are appropriate, we have to look at whether or not they are necessary to protect the public from future crimes, and whether the seriousness of the conduct is not, and the danger he is not disproportionate to the seriousness of the conduct and the danger he poses to the public. His actions that day and his willingness to endanger so many lives and take the life of Annelisa Endress clearly establishes that consecutive sentences are appropriate. Additionally, a court must make only one of 3 additional factors, Your Honor, for consecutive sentences. However, the defendant satisfies all 3. The defendant's conduct and criminal history. He was a fugitive from justice. He was a fugitive from justice at the time of the offense. The loss of the young woman's life is so great or unusual that no single prison term will adequately reflect the seriousness of the defendant's conduct. And his soon-to-be 6 criminal convictions in 2 years demonstrates that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public. This victim's death occurred because the defendant once again wanted to escape accountability and justice. His motivation for placing the lives of everyone he encountered that day was based on his own self-interest, because he didn't want to go to jail. He didn't care about the loss of lives and the impact he would have with his actions that day. Your Honor, the taking of an innocent life to escape justice warrants the most severe consequence possible. And because of that, the state of Ohio is asking that not only is he given a maximum sentence in this case, but that you impose the outstanding sentences on the cases he is on probation for and to run them consecutively. We would ask that you also admit, as part of the record, the state's exhibits that were submitted under seal, and take into consideration everything else you've heard in the courtroom today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marine, on behalf of your client.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court at the outset, just as a housekeeping matter, I know we've already placed our objection to Raymond Francis on the record. We would just renew that objection. Judge, I'm going to be fairly brief. This court is intimately familiar with the facts of this case, with my client. You have had the opportunity to review several pretty thorough mental health evaluations. You've reviewed the sentencing memorandums of both parties, and the letters on behalf of both parties, which frankly are the most impactful information, I think, that was presented to the court. They're intimate and just incredibly moving. I'm not going to hover on any areas where I might have a slight difference of opinion with the prosecuting attorney, because at the end of the day, these type of cases are the most difficult to handle, because while my client, and I think that he didn't seek out harming this particular person on this day, the most tragic, an innocent loss of life, and he has no words to ameliorate his conduct. He is beyond remorseful, and while we have absolutely included in our sentencing memorandum and stand by the position that, Judge, this is a mental health court, this is somebody who does have serious mental health diagnoses, and we think that at least the court should be viewing his actions through that prism, it is not a blanket excuse for his conduct. We're not suggesting that it is. In fact, it was determined that he was not guilty by reason of insanity, so that is not.
I apologize.
It's okay, Judge. He sits here today understanding that he is going to serve a lengthy prison sentence. He knows that he is going to prison today, and it will not be a light sentence. It will be substantial, and that once he ultimately completes that sentence, he will be supervised by the APA, and he'll never be able to drive again. There are going to be wide-ranging punishment that comes from this, but beyond that is the fact that Raymond, when he is lucid, when he is medication compliant, and that has not always been the case, and we acknowledge that, but when he has been compliant, you see a glimpse of who he is through the letters that were presented to you by his family. That has been my experience with him during intimate conversations in the county jail. He's about as nice of a person as you'll meet when he is lucid, when he is medication compliant. During his term of incarceration, he will immerse himself in mental health treatment, in substance abuse treatment. He didn't take advantage of it when he had an opportunity with this court, and he acknowledges that. But that is going to be his goal when he's in the institution, because someday he will come out of the institution, and I'm hopeful, I pray that he is going to be a more stable person than he has been in these past several years. I'd ask that the court take into consideration the mental health evaluations, the sentencing memorandum that was presented. I believe that my client's aunt would like to say a few words, and then I would ask at the appropriate time that you hear from Mr. Francis before imposing sentence. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is speaking on behalf of Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Sabrina.
Can you tell me your name?
Sabrina.
Okay. What's your last name?
Abdel Sayed.
Can you spell that?
ABDELSAYED.
Okay. Please tell me what you would like me to know.
Your Honor, you know all you need to know, but on behalf of my family, I want to speak to your family because this is your loss. Your daughter, Annelise, was killed, your sister, and there's not much that we can say to say sorry and how much our hearts go out to you. There's literally nothing we can say, and we know that. The tragedy of her life lost too early, while it's very, very hard to accept, is a travesty that has been Raymond's life for 12 years. Now, it's very easy for people to say at the moment that he took this decision that he was not mentally insane. And I don't know, because I don't know what goes through his head as his aunt, as someone who held him when he was born. I don't know what goes through his mind when it goes through his mind, but I can tell you that I have watched this young man from the time that he was 14 years old go in and out of his mind and be tricked by it so many times in so many random ways where everything else is normal. How do you know when he actually can tell them when he doesn't? How do you take him to a doctor who's just running science experiments on him, giving him different medications at different times? Believe me, if we could have prevented this, we would have. If Raymond could have prevented this, he would have. Did he get flighty? He's schizophrenic. Please let me just say that. He is schizophrenic. The one consistent thing about schizophrenia is that they're paranoid. I walked down the street with Raymond while he thought that Uber drivers were trying to assassinate him. Every time a car came by, I had to flee with him so that we didn't lose him for another week because we didn't know where he would end up. Every time a car came by, he thought we were getting ready to get killed. I saw the fear in his eyes before he had to make a last-minute decision. Was he going to strand his aunt on the side of the street and run for his own life, or stay there with me, or was I going to run with him? He didn't know, but he was scared. And it was his mind telling him that. So I am so sorry. I don't know what went through his mind at the moment that he decided to flee from that officer. I have no clue. And I am so sorry on behalf of his mother, his sister, all of his family for your loss. We're feeling it too, believe me, we are. Not at the same extent that you are, but we've lost Raymond to his own mind over and over and over again. And he got a moment of flightiness and took your daughter's life. And we can't take that back. So while you guys are asking for the maximum sentence, I don't know what the sentence is going to be or how many years it's going to be.
But Your Honor, I am asking you, please, put him in a facility that is going to address him, because he does need to be addressed.
Thank you. Mr. Francis, is there anything that you wish to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
We have one person.
Judge, would you mind just one more person speaking on Mr. Francis' behalf?
Not at all. Mr. Francis, have a seat.
Forward.
Hi, my name is Althea.
Hold on. Can you tell me your name?
Althea Francis.
I can't hear you. Can you try that again?
Althea Francis.
Althea? Same spelling as Mr. Francis.
Yes.
Okay. What would you like me to know?
Yeah, what I would like is for you to know, I've been dealing with this situation since I was a teenager. It runs in the family. And some of them commit suicide. And, you know, even my brother is the same way. I have a daughter is the same way. What she spoke about, where they get paranoid, and she thinks people are following her, and where she pulled over and asked the man, go to the police station and tell them that this man been following her. So I've been dealing with this from I was a child. My grandmother was the same way. Uncles, aunt, it never stopped. You know, they're telling me this is generic. But, you know, each child you have, you're dealing with the same problem. It never stopped. All the family members, they just lose their mind. I see it in my kids. I saw it in Raymond. I told the mom, yeah, it runs in the family. This is something where, even though you take the medication, I mean, he needs help. I have a brother who walked and think he's God. You know, and he ran away. We tried to get him to help. He ran away. He went to Canada. He stabbed up someone, thinking that the man was attacking him. And like I said, and some of them, they jump off the bridge, commit suicide. These are the things that have been going on in our family. And you know, you said, okay, you take the medication, he's one way, but then once it wore off, then who is he? Who you're dealing with? You know, and I'm saying, I'm sorry for your loss, I am. But I've been dealing with this for my whole entire life. And it just never stopped. Every child that borns, you see it in them. You see it in your grandkids. You see it in your kids. It just don't stop. My grandmother was like that. When she thought she was here in the state, she got paranoid, she went back home. You know, and when she went back home, she thought everybody was following her. She used to bathe us even in urine as a kid, thinking that, oh yeah, something is on you too.
Thank you. Mr. Francis, what would you like to say?
I would just like to apologize to the family. Let them know how deeply sorry I am. And I know nothing I can say will make them forgive me or just do anything, but I just need them to know I'm sorry. That I would never purposely do something like this. And I'd like to apologize to you, Your Honor. You gave me chances before. I didn't direct those chances. And I'm just sick of this, going through these things. And I'm finally ready to take my mental health seriously and just do right with my life. So, while I'm incarcerated, I like to learn more about my mental health, learn
attached letters from the family, the defense's sentencing memorandum with the letters that were attached on behalf of Mr. Francis, the mitigation of penalty report, and the body camera footage of the incident that brought us here today. I will grant the state's motion to file with the record the evidence submitted under seal. I have reviewed the purposes and principles of sentencing pursuant to revised code section 2929.11. The serious and recidivism factors relevant to this offense and yourself pursuant to revised code 2929.12. And the need for deterrence, incapacitation, rehabilitation, and restitution. This is probably one of the hardest sentencing hearings I've ever had to go through. And I can see that on both sides of this courtroom. It is devastating. Parents aren't supposed to bury their children. They're just not supposed to. It goes against every law of nature, and I'm sorry. And your sister, your sibling relationships are supposed to be the longest relationships you have in your life. They are with you the longest. And you were robbed of that. And I am so sorry. I cannot talk about closure. Nothing replaces her. And after today, it's not like some door will shut and your life will change. But I do hope you have peace. I want to thank you for being here today and holding up pictures of Annelise. She's beautiful, and I'm so sorry. I feel your pain, and I'm sorry. I also feel the pain of Mr. Francis's family. I know that this is a mental health court. Mental health is hard, and I acknowledge that Mr. Francis has serious mental illness. I also acknowledge that my attempts to grant leniency based on that serious mental illness have been exhausted and wasted by Mr. Francis. Case 673-953, on count 1, I'm imposing an indefinite sentence on the charge of involuntary manslaughter. You're serving an indefinite prison sentence with a minimum of 11 years and a maximum of 16 and a half years in prison. Count 3, failure to comply, the felony of the 3rd degree. I'm sentencing you to 3 years in prison. By law, the failure to comply charge has to be served consecutive to any other sentence that I impose. Count 6, grand theft, felony of the 4th degree. I'm sentencing you to 8 months in prison. 18 months in prison. I'm imposing a Class 1 lifetime suspension on your license, Mr. Francis. You will never drive. Although you had a suspended license at the time that this happened, but for the record, you will never drive again, and you will never have driving privileges. When you are finished serving your indefinite sentence, it is that 11 years, it is presumed that you will be released when you finish your minimum term, unless the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections determines that you must remain in prison for bad conduct. This decision is made by the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections, not by me. If you are not released when your minimum term ends, you will serve an additional specified period of time and be given a new release date. You will be released on that date unless you are again denied release for bad conduct. This process will repeat until you are either released or until you finish your maximum term. You are also eligible for good time credit. It's possible to earn anywhere from 5 to 15% against your minimum sentence for good behavior. I have the right to deny your good time credit, but before that could happen, I would assign an attorney to represent you, and we would have a hearing. I going to hold off on making my consecutive sentencing findings until the end of all the sentences that are imposed. For case 66773, 666991, 657556, 656393, 654129. I find that you violated the terms of your probation by committing this felony offense, that you no longer are eligible for probation, and I will impose the underlying prison sentence for each of these cases. 667738. Count 1, failure to comply, attempted failure to comply with the order or signal of a police officer. I'm sentencing you to 18 months in prison. And count 3, unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, the misdemeanor of the first degree. I'm sentencing you to 180 days in the county jail. Those two charges will run concurrent. Case 666991. Count 1, theft, a felony of the 5th degree. I'm sentencing you to 1 year in prison and ordering a judgment in the amount of $1,964.80 to the victim, IVY. 657556, count the sole count of the indictment, grand theft, a felony of the 4th degree. I'm sentencing you to 18 months in prison. 656393, count 1, obstructing justice, a felony of the 5th degree. I'm sentencing you to 1 year in prison. 654129, grand theft, a felony of the 4th degree. The sole count of the indictment. I'm sentencing you to 18 months in prison. I'm finding that consecutive sentences are warranted in these 6 cases, and I am ordering Mr. Francis to serve the sentences in case 673953. Counts 1, 3, and 6 are ordered to be served consecutively. That's a total prison sentence on this case alone of 15 and a half years to 21 years in prison. I'm further ordering that the sentences for all 5 probation cases are to be served consecutively. After reviewing the record and the evidence, I find that consecutive sentences are necessary to punish Mr. Francis. And a big part of my job is to protect the public from future crime, and I believe it's necessary to sentence him consecutively for almost that reason alone. And these sentences are not disproportionate to the conduct or danger posed by Mr. Francis, and that his history demonstrates that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public, that Mr. Francis's offenses are part of a course of conduct, that the harm caused is so great that a single prison term would not adequately reflect the seriousness of the conduct, and in the most recent case, actually for 3 out of these 6 cases, they were committed while he was on probation. On the probation cases, all 5 added up as 6.5 years consecutively. You add that to the sentence I've already imposed. It's a total prison sentence for all 6 cases of a minimum of 22 years and a maximum of 27.5 years in prison. For case 673953, I'm granting you 306 days of jail credit. For cases ending in 129, 393, 556, I'm giving you 438 days of jail credit. For cases ending in 991 and 738, you have 433 days of jail credit. For all 6 of your cases, you will also earn credit for any days starting today until you're transported to the appropriate institution. When you are finished serving your prison term, the state of Ohio adult parole authority will have a mandatory period of supervision. It's a minimum of 2 years up to a maximum of 5 years, and this is called post-release control. If you fail to comply with the terms of any post-release control supervision, the adult parole authority could modify or extend your supervision and make it more restrictive. They can incarcerate you for up to half of the sentence I've just imposed here today. They could charge you with a new offense called escape, another felony where you would face additional prison time. And if you commit a new crime while on post-release control, you could face the maximum penalties under the law for that new crime committed. I'm noting the defense's objection to the indefinite sentencing structure that was renewed at the time of sentencing. I'm also noting that Mr. Francis will be serving a lengthy prison sentence, and that I will waive all fines and court costs that are associated with all 6 of these cases. And seeing that I imposed a maximum and consecutive sentence on these cases, I'm notifying you of your right to appeal. You have a right to appeal the judgment of these convictions. You have a right to have a notice of appeal timely filed on your behalf. I have found you indigent, and I will appoint the public defender to represent you on appeal and provide a transcript of all of the proceedings in this matter at state's expense. Is there anything further on behalf of your client, Mr. Marine?
Judge, just one moment. Nothing, Judge.
Thank you. Is there anything further on behalf of the state of Ohio?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
May I ask you guys to wait for a few minutes?
Lisa?
Let me know when we're ready. Coach, just give us a few minutes. We're going to wait for the